It was August, the kind of hot coastal night that still felt sticky long after sunset. The beach should have been crowded, loud, and alive. Instead, it lay abandoned behind red flags and warning signs, the whole shoreline closed off like something out there had finally been noticed. That was exactly why Tiffany's friends thought it would make the perfect place for a midnight birthday celebration. Empty beach, no police patrols, no strangers, just 9 adults, a cake, a few lanterns, and one terrible decision. Tiffany arrived last and found Michael, Gabby, Neil, April, Steve, Lola, Martin, and Leo waiting outside the locked boardwalk gate. Someone had tied black balloons to the fence. Someone else had balanced a cake box on the hood of a car. The chained gate rattled in the wind. A huge sign read "Beach Closed" in faded red letters. Another one beneath it warned of dangerous surf, unstable sand, and restricted access after dark. Martin laughed and called it the most dramatic birthday venue ever. Nobody turned around, not even Tiffany, though she wanted to. Steve climbed the gate first. Michael passed the cooler over. Gabby slipped between the side rails. One by one they crossed over or crawled through, ignoring the red flags snapping in the dark. By the time Tiffany stepped onto the boardwalk, the whole group was already moving toward the beach like the warnings had been written for somebody else. They set up on a wide patch of dry sand below the dunes. Lola laid out a blanket. April unpacked paper plates. Neil hung 2 battery lanterns from umbrella stakes. Michael planted a candle in the cake, even though the wind kept trying to kill the flame. Farther down the shoreline stood a row of lifeguard chairs, pale and empty under the moon. Chair number 7 was the closest one to them. Tiffany noticed it because it seemed darker than the others, as if the night leaned against it harder. The ocean sounded wrong. There were waves, but no rhythm to them. No crash, no hiss, no easy back and forth. Just a slow dragging noise, like something wet being pulled across the sand and then stopped before anyone could see it. Leo joked that the beach sounded like it was breathing. Nobody laughed as much as they should have. At 11:55, Gabby announced they should sing early, before the candles blew out again. Tiffany stood in the lantern glow smiling for her friends, but her eyes kept drifting down the shore. Chair number 7 was still empty. She was sure of that. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was supposed to be sitting there, watching them celebrate from the dark. The moment midnight arrived, every phone in the group lit at once. 12 o'clock. At the exact same second, April went silent. Tiffany followed her stare toward the water and felt her stomach turn to stone. A soaked figure was sitting in lifeguard chair number 7. No one had seen him walk up the beach. No one had seen him climb the steps. He had simply appeared there, dripping in the moonlight. He looked like a man, but only in the way a body can still resemble a person after something has gone very wrong. His clothes hung heavy with seawater. His head drooped slightly to one side. His skin shone pale and swollen, and every few seconds water spilled off the chair in slow, steady drops. Then he raised one arm and pointed, straight at Martin. For one frightened second, Martin gave a shaky laugh and pointed back at himself as if to say, "Me?" But nobody answered him. Nobody moved. The beach lights along the boardwalk exploded into darkness all at once. Their lanterns died too. The shoreline vanished. The ocean vanished. Even the moon seemed to go out, and the group was swallowed by a black so complete Tiffany could not see her own hands. Somebody screamed. Somebody else fell. Tiffany heard the cooler tip over and plastic plates scatter across the sand. Then the lights came back. The moon returned. The lanterns flickered weakly. The boardwalk lamps buzzed alive again. Martin was gone. He had been standing on dry sand only seconds earlier. In his place was an empty patch of ground and a thin trail of seawater leading away from the group, all the way to the steps of lifeguard chair number 7. The soaked figure was gone too. April backed away first, whispering Martin's name. Michael ran to where Martin had been standing and found only a dropped paper plate, a shoe print, and wet sand that should not have been wet. Gabby turned toward the warning sign beside chair number 7 and let out a strangled sound. A name had appeared across the sign in dripping dark letters. Leo. Panic hit the group all at once. Leo stumbled backward, swearing he hadn't done this, swearing Martin must be hiding. Steve shouted that it was a prank. Michael tried calling 911 and stared at his phone as the signal bars vanished completely. They bolted for the front gate, but when April grabbed the chain, it would not budge. The chain looked newer than before. Thicker, brighter, as if it had just been put on. They went back because Martin was still missing, and because leaving Leo alone felt like handing him over. Near chair number 7, Lola found Martin's phone lying in damp sand. The screen was cracked, but the camera was still recording. On the video, Martin could be seen from behind, staring toward the chair. The clip shook once, then the frame filled with a soaked face leaning close to the lens, cloudy eyes open far too wide. The phone speaker hissed with static and seawater. Tiffany nearly dropped it. Behind the hiss came a whisper, low and wet, like a mouth speaking through a flooded drain. "Stay where you are." Then a chair creak groaned through the recording. One slow squeal of metal and wood. Everyone on the beach heard it at the same time, from the phone and from the darkness ahead. Chair number 7 had moved. Leo was staring at the waterline. Tiffany followed his gaze and saw a shape in the foam. A man standing ankle-deep in the surf, striped shirt clinging to his body. Martin, or something wearing Martin's shape. He lifted one arm the same way the soaked figure had, bent at the elbow, fingers hanging limp. Then the wave slid back, and the shape was gone. That was when they ran. All 9 had entered together, but only 8 tore down the beach now, lantern light shaking wildly across the sand. Tiffany stayed in the middle, Neil gripping her arm. They ran north, away from chair number 7, away from the water, away from the sign. After nearly a minute of sprinting, they stopped, gasping, and found themselves standing in front of the same chair again. The beach had folded in on itself, the same warning sign, the same damp sand, the same cooler lying on its side. Even the half-smashed birthday cake was there beside the blanket. Neil whispered that they must have turned around. April snapped that they hadn't. April stepped closer to the base of chair number 7 and found old names scratched into the peeling paint of the lower support post. Dozens of them, layered over each other until the wood looked carved with panic. Leo saw his own name there too, fresh, wet, cut deeper than the others. Before he could back away, the soaked figure was suddenly seated in the chair again, as silent as before, head tilted, seawater dripping from his sleeves. He slowly lifted his arm and pointed at Leo. Tiffany heard Lola say, "No, no, no," over and over, but the figure never looked at anyone except the man he had chosen. The lights died again. This time Tiffany dropped to her knees in the dark and covered her head, listening to everyone scream Leo's name. She heard footsteps pounding in panic, then stopping. Heard water sloshing where there should have been only dry sand. Heard something climbing wooden steps, one wet creak at a time. When the lights returned, Leo was gone. The sign now read, "Steve." Steve broke. He grabbed a driftwood log from the sand and charged the chair, roaring in rage and fear. He swung hard enough to crack one of the lower rails. The sound echoed down the beach like a gunshot. For one instant, everyone seemed to breathe again, as if the chair could be destroyed like anything else. Then a handprint appeared on Steve's throat. Not a visible hand, a wet print, blooming on his skin from nowhere, 5 finger marks closing around his neck. Steve dropped the log and clawed at his throat. Behind him, the broken chair rail began to drip, but the water ran upward instead of down, threading back into the wood as if time were reversing itself. At the top of the chair, a rusted emergency whistle hanging from a nail suddenly shrieked on its own. The sound was piercing, inhuman, endless. Michael dragged Steve back, but Steve kept gagging and staring upward, as if someone invisible stood over him on the steps. The sand under Steve's feet darkened. It spread in a circle, soaking outward, and then his legs plunged knee-deep into what had been dry ground. He screamed for Michael, for anybody, and Tiffany lunged forward. But Lola caught her just before the sand around Steve collapsed inward like a drain opening. The beach went dark a third time. When the lights returned, Steve was gone. The sand had dried. The sign now said, Tiffany. For a moment, nobody looked at Tiffany. Then everybody did. Neil backed away from her first. He didn't say anything cruel at first, but the fear on his face did it for him. April started crying. Gabby took Tiffany's hand so hard it hurt. Michael stepped in front of her like he could block whatever was coming. Only Lola kept watching the chair because she knew the chair was watching them back. Tiffany stared at her own name on the warning sign and felt the night tilt around her. She hadn't wanted this beach. She hadn't picked the date. She hadn't asked anybody to ignore the gate. But it was her birthday, her cake, her name now written where Leo's and Steve's had been. The chair had moved closer too, not by much, just enough that she could see water dripping from the lowest step. They tried one last time to leave together. Michael and Gabby stayed beside Tiffany. April and Lola followed close behind. Neil kept looking over his shoulder, and every time he did, he swore the chair had turned a little more. Not moved from its place. Turned. Pivoted. So that wherever they ran on the sand, chair number 7 kept facing Tiffany directly. The soaked figure was no longer visible. Somehow that felt worse. A gray-blue hint of dawn finally touched the horizon. It should have made the beach feel safer. Instead, it made everything clearer. The trail of seawater was back, but now it circled Tiffany's feet. The boardwalk gate stood ahead at last, exactly where it should have been. Michael and Lola slammed into it first. Neil scrambled up the side rails in a blind panic. Together, they forced the chain loose enough to squeeze through. They spilled into the parking lot, shaking. From outside the fence, the beach looked empty. Too empty. Chair number 7 stood in the distance beyond the dunes, bright in the growing dawn. But it was no longer facing the ocean. It was facing inland, facing the gate, facing Tiffany. The police came after Gabby found a weak signal and made the call. Officers searched the beach, but their lights found no sign of Martin, Leo, or Steve. No seawater trail. No strange footprints. Not even the broken rail Steve had hit. The chair looked old and weathered and harmless. One officer glanced at the birthday cake smeared across Tiffany's hands and asked if alcohol was involved. Tiffany looked past him toward the warning sign. It was blank again. By the next evening, nobody wanted to talk about what had happened. Michael kept texting. April called twice and cried both times. Neil said he was leaving town. Lola warned Tiffany not to be alone after dark. Tiffany went home, showered, and tried not to think about the soaked face in Martin's phone video. But when she finally looked at the recording again, she saw something she had missed. In the corner of the frame, before midnight had even happened, the warning sign already carried one name. Tiffany. That night, Tiffany lay in bed wearing an oversized sleep shirt, the room lit only by a small lamp and the weak glow of city light through the blinds. Her birthday flowers on the dresser smelled faintly of salt. She heard a creak overhead, then another, then the slow, wet knock of something dripping where no water should be. She sat up. The beach closed sign was leaning against her bedroom wall beside the window, damp and shining in the dark. Her name stretched across it in fresh black letters. A thin trail of seawater ran from the sign, up the wall, across the ceiling above her bed, and stopped directly over her face, as if chair number 7 was not on the beach anymore, as if it had followed her home. The ending reveals that Tiffany was never truly safe after escaping the beach. Chair number 7 did not only choose people standing near it, it marked them. When Tiffany's name appeared on the warning sign, the curse claimed her even though she survived until dawn. The beach was only where the curse began its hunt. The soaked figure, the disappearing guests, and the changing names were all signs that chair number 7 could select a victim and follow that person beyond the shoreline. The clue appears in Martin's phone recording. Tiffany's name was already on the sign before the group noticed it, suggesting the chair had chosen her from the beginning. The beach closed sign appearing inside Tiffany's bedroom proves the curse crossed into her home. The seawater running up the wall and across the ceiling shows that normal distance and physical barriers no longer matter. The chair itself may not literally be in the room, but its presence is now above her, watching and waiting. The curse follows Tiffany home because she escaped after being chosen. Martin, Leo, and Steve vanished immediately, but Tiffany delayed her disappearance by leaving the beach before the next blackout. The curse therefore brought the warning sign to her, turning her bedroom into its new shoreline.
Thanks for watching.